Well, see, I didn't get that invitation, but I just naturally just unmute myself. So
You do it every year.
Michael, thank you for hosting these because it's been great, a great way to stay connected. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and get started. So welcome everyone to the final e-conference for now. This is number 24. As we've made our way through the summer, just want to give you an idea. It's been 113 days since the very first e-conference, which means it's been about 115 days since most of us scrambled home. And wow, how things have changed in the past 4.5 months. And so, you know, we've seen these real seismic shifts in how we've been working as a community, how we connect online, how we view field trips and the future of show production, all of these things. But probably the most important thing we've discovered over the past 4 months is how fantastic our community really is and how easy it was for all of us to come together and be supportive and get through these dark and trying times. And so today, because it is the final e-conference, at least until the fall, I'm Gandalf, the Office Gray, and I am a wizard today. Got to be on that side. There we go. Got to make it right, jaunty. Because about like 3 or 4 weeks ago, Renee Kerrigan said that I was like a Zoom wizard. And somehow that evolved into I need a full hat and a pipe for the last e-conference to kind of play that part. And then we just embraced everything else. And so what you're going to see today is really the best of the best of the best of what we have to offer here in the e-conferences. We have a world premiere announcement from Mike Smale and the Adler Planetarium. This is one of the coolest stories you're going to hear all year. We're really excited that Mike got the clearance to give that story here at the e-conference first. We're going to get a big update from Big Astronomy. So we've got Shannon and Tiffany and Renee in the room. We have a special guest this afternoon, a really special guest. And then we have the longest German words of the year. 80 characters long for one word. And then there is I believe a 97 character thrice hyphenated. It's amazing. It's just, you're gonna have to expand to the whole screen. So the longest German words of the year with Anna. Justin's back with Totally Bored and has a special guest, his arch nemesis in gaming, who we'll get to meet. Mike's going as deep into the Smale collection as he's ever gone with the Record Shop, and some more pandemic podcasts for you, Planetarian, with Mary Holt. And at the end of it all, we're going to do our best parts of the week, best parts of the month, best part of the year, and have ourselves as good a time as any. I have to run for this first part of the meeting because somehow I now have another meeting in the middle of the e-conference. So you know it's important. I'll be back around 1, and that means that I get to turn this over to my co-host for the first part, Mike Smale. But before we do that, I get to introduce Mike Smale. Mike Smale, of course, is from the Adler Planetarium, and this is a travel memoir of sorts as Mike and the Adler crew made their way across the Midwest. So without further ado, Mike Smale, everybody.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, everybody. Thank you. So, in January of 1970, the Adler Planetarium deinstalled our original Zeiss projector. It was the first one in the Western Hemisphere. We took that planetarium, we shipped it to Jackson, Mississippi, where it would be reinstalled in the soon-to-be constructed City Planetarium. But when the Russell C. Davis Planetarium opened in downtown Jackson in 1978, the installed projector was a Minolta S4. So what happened to the Adler Zeiss? Why wasn't it installed in Jackson? And where is it now? Those questions have been the source of a fair bit of online discussion among planetarium historians and collectors, and now we have the answers. But first, let's go with a little bit of backstory. In January of the Zeiss Mark II was in place for the Adler's opening in May 12th of 1930. In 1960, the Adler upgraded their projector, adding the 2 collars or ruffs at the base of each starball that held individual projectors for the 42 brightest stars. There's also a new moon projector, and maybe most importantly, a pair of new chromium-coated star plates, replacing the original hand-punched copper plates. And by 1968, Zeiss had released their newest large planetarium projector, the Model 6, and the Adler was in the midst of researching their next planetarium projector purchase. Now, coincidentally, that same year, William T. Clark, president of Observadome in Jackson, Mississippi, approached the Adler to inquire if we would be willing to sell our projector. Now, Zeiss had already refused to give Adler any sort of trade-in credit on that old projector, so this seemed like a good way to earn some additional money, but also to ensure that the planetarium projector would get a second life, continuing to educate audiences in the future. Like many communities at the time, Jackson was attempting to access matching funding from the National Defense Education Act in order to purchase the projector. And in order to meet those timelines, Observadome acted as a go-between, purchasing the projector from the Adler and then selling it to Jackson. Now, December 31st, 1969 was the Model 2/3's last day in operation. Technicians from the Adler and Observadome spent the next 2 weeks carefully disassembling the projector, packing it back into the same crates that the Mark 6 had just arrived in from Oberkochen, Germany. Now, as previously mentioned, the Davis Planetarium opened in 1978, but with a Minolta S4 projector at its core. So why not the Zeiss? Well, when the team in Jackson investigated the actual costs of reconstructing and updating the Zeiss, they found it would cost over $200,000. And when they reached out to planetarium manufacturers for bid quotes for a new installation, they received an offer from Vulex, who was then Minolta's US distributor, that was about $100,000 less than those Zeiss repair costs. Vulex also offered the city of Jackson $30,000 in trade for Adler's old Zeiss projector. Now, I can't say I blame them for the choice. They got 35 good years out of that new projector. And the Adler Zeiss then found itself shipped to Vulex's Long Island warehouse space, where it sat for the next few years. Now, if you're one of the folks like me who try to stay up on planetarium history, you may know much of what I've already said. Thanks to the incredible research compiled by Glenn Walsh, Brent Sullivan, Gary Lazik, who's in the chat here, and many others, and archived on Glenn's Planetarium History website. But it's at this point, when the projector left Jackson, Mississippi, that multiple stories begin to develop. And the details on Glenn's website begin to sort of diverge and muddy a little bit. So let's clear things up. In 1980, Vulex Audiovisual Incorporated went bankrupt. The freight and storage company that owned their warehouse began calling up Zeiss planetariums around the country looking for someone who'd be willing to pay $10,000 to purchase Adler's Zeiss. One of their calls was to Sam Mims, one of the two planetarium curators at the Louisiana Arts and Science Center in Baton Rouge. Now, realizing the details of this historic artifact and the dangers of it being scrapped, Sam got a few investors together, including his father and his co-curator at the planetarium, Wayne Koskrey, and they agreed to purchase the projector. Sam paid a visit to New York, inspected the projector in person, and coupled with the freight company's records, confirmed this was the Adler Zeiss. So after finalizing that sales contract, the projector was then shipped to a warehouse in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Now, at this time, the Louisiana Arts and Science Center Planetarium was also a Zeiss Model 3, having originally been installed as a Zeiss Model 2 at the Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles. But Sam and Wayne didn't have plans to use the Adler Zeiss for spare parts. They wanted to get it in the hands of someone who could put it to immediate use or preserve its historical value. Now, the Baton Rouge group ran ads in Astronomy, Sky and Telescope, even the Planetarian. This is the ad from the Q2 issue of the 1983 Planetarian, attempting to find a potential purchaser for this Zeiss. And in 1987, they finally found a buyer. Don Greider, who was a solar engineer from Mechanicsburg, Ohio, arranged to purchase the Adler Zeiss with a goal of reassembling it in his warehouse. Now, that was the last time anybody saw or heard about the Adler Zeiss for over 20 years. Now, As some of you may recall, Adler found ourselves thrust into the political spotlight in late 2008 as a certain presidential candidate derogatorily accused another presidential candidate of requesting a $3 million earmark for the Adler to buy an overhead projector. As a result, we found ourselves making numerous statements to the press about the differences between a classroom overhead projector and the latest in high-end planetarium instruments. Now, Don Greider happened to catch a piece on NPR about this, and he gave the Adler a call. He heard that that our projector was old and it was failing, and that we were looking to replace it. He wanted to offer his services to help us manufacture new or replacement parts for our Zeiss. Now, this led to a series of phone calls and even an in-person visit over the next few years. But by the end of 2012, by the beginning of 2013, we weren't able to come to an agreement. Don wasn't ready to sell the projector, and eventually he stopped returning our phone calls. Fast forward to February 17th of this year. I received a voicemail forwarded to me from our museum's main phone line. It was Don Greider's son, Ken. Ken was making arrangements to clear out the Greider warehouse and barn on their farm and wanted to know if we were interested in purchasing our Zeiss. So on February 29th, a small group from the Adler drove out to the Greider farm southwest of Mechanicsburg in Ohio in an attempt to verify that it was Adler Zeiss and to inspect the condition of the parts. So, what did we find? We found a lot of loose material. We found a couple things here. On the left, there's a lamp alignment grid, a lamp alignment jig for a Zeiss projector. On the right there, are the actual lamp holders that would go inside the star balls for a couple of Zeiss projectors. We found some ancillary projectors. We found our directional cardinal point signage listing our directions. We found a couple of uplights. We found some constellation projectors. We found a whole mess of lens plate assemblies. There's the condenser lens on the left there, and then the star plate, and then additional lenses over towards the right. We found some pointers, some slide envelopes, some spare lamps. We found some slides. There's everybody's favorite sea monster on the left. And yes, that is Linus from Charlie Brown there on the right. Pretty sure that wasn't original to the Zeiss factory. We also found a lot of crates. Outside of the warehouse barn was a gigantic crate, much larger than a person, weighed several thousand pounds, covered with a tarp, held in place by a series of tires and computer monitors and cinder blocks and other assorted things. And once we got that crate open, we found the centerpiece, the main yolk of a Zeiss projector. Back inside the barn, there was a crate with a couple of star balls, a northern hemisphere and a southern hemisphere star ball. There was another crate with a southern planet cage. You can see the rough around that was added with the Model 3, where the additional bright star projectors were moved to. And again, these crates, they were from Germany. They were clearly German crates. We found labeling showing they were shipped from Oberkochen, Germany to the Adler. And we found labeling that they were shipped from the Adler down to Jackson, Mississippi. We even found labeling that showed they were shipped from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, up to Mechanicsburg, Ohio. And there inside the final crate, which was the North Planetary cage, we found a lot of intact newspaper packed inside of it. And sure enough, that newspaper, December 21st, 1969, Chicago Tribune, that was the final twist in it that made us realize that, yes, in fact, this was the Adler Zeiss that had been sitting for decades in this barn outside of Mechanicsburg, Ohio. After a bit of back and forth, we settled on a price and we agreed to purchase our Zeiss back from the Greider family. We made a second trip to the barn in mid-June to pick up a lot of the smaller pieces and parts, the lamps and lenses and the stuff that we could haul back. And then the third and final trip was made at the end of June. This was to oversee the removal of our final 4 crates. The large outdoor crate containing the centerpiece of the Zeiss had to be disassembled. It was rotting away. There were, we found some ants inside of it and some other unsavory things. But this also gave us our first good look at the most of the condition of the piece. And you can see that cobwebs aside, it's actually in remarkably good shape. The freight company then hoisted out the centerpiece, and thanks to the kind of the intricacies of its position there on the farm, had to be hoisted up, crated over power lines, and then brought down onto another truck. The company basically crated all these to Columbus, which was about an hour away. They recrated up the centerpiece, put it in a new crate, and then shipped all of it back to Chicago. One last fun little surprise that we found inside the crate, because again, these were the crates that were shipped over from Germany with the Model 6 inside of it. The Zeiss crew in Oberkochen left us a little Happy New Year message. You can see there at the center, 18 December 1969, and all the various guys there signed it. That was the inside of that big outdoor crate, so we made sure to cut that off and take it with us. And yeah, as of a couple days ago, a little more than a couple days at this point, I can say that Adler's original Zeiss projector is crated up, stored in Adler's offsite warehouse, and I can assure you that it is being looked after by top men and women, but top men and women. So that's that. That's what I had to share with you. I'm a little short on time, I think, but I wanted to show you a little bit of the history, a little bit of the process behind our efforts to go back and rediscover and reacquire and hunt down our Zeiss projector. So it's been quite an interesting journey. We will be promoting, talking about this a lot more. Obviously, we want to, part of the reason behind getting the projector back was to be able to restore it, to be able to sort of spruce it back up. We're not looking to restore it into a functioning condition, but more looking at it as a potential display piece for the museum. We also still have our Mark VI in storage as well as the Digistar that sat at the center of the first Star Rider, the first full dome color digital video planetarium in the US. And obviously we can't say what the future will hold, but with the upcoming centennial of the planetarium, it seems like it would be a great time to put some efforts forward. You know, we've kicked around ideas, nothing official, maybe a crowdfunding campaign to help us restore and maintain it. Most of the, it was kind of visible. Some of the crates had obviously been opened in the past. Others, like that North Planet cage, likely had never been opened between 1970 and the time we saw them. The internals were in pristine condition, no apparent rust, paint just as it existed before. So it's pretty exciting. We're pretty excited, pretty happy about it. I guess I will go back through the comments here and see if there are any questions. Otherwise, I think we are now a couple minutes ahead of schedule, and with our Grand Wizard Gandalf, the office gray, out of place. Shannon, Tiffany, Renee, are you all ready to go to talk about big astronomy?
Sure.
Yeah, I think we're ready. Unless, Mike, you want to answer any questions about your story.
Yeah, I'm looking through right now. It looks like there's a couple questions about, again, what we hope to do with it. And like we said, it's get it cleaned up, get it on display. Obviously, there is kind of one major pending potential issue. The original sort of lattice support structure that the projector was held on was not in any of the crates we found. So we need to come up with a way to support the 3,000 plus pounds of projector while we sort of reassemble / restore / maintain it. So that is something that would obviously have to come up in the future when we determine, do we reconstruct it on site and then restore it? Do we restore it piecemeal off site and then bring it into the museum? Those are all things that we'll have to figure out in the future. Constellation does Linus belong to, Shannon? I have no idea. There were a couple others. So I guess, yeah, quick funny story about the slides. When we first went out in February, we found the little box with the folders with labeled slides, and it was like, oh, Aquarius and Aquila and Cygnus and blah, blah, blah. And I looked in one of them, but I didn't see a slide in it. So we thought, oh, they must have left the slides inside the little single shot Constellation projectors. And then this last visit, when we were delivering things to our warehouse, we cracked open, I started looking in some of the other folders, and I pulled one of the little slide envelopes out. and it had about half a dozen slides in it. And I said, oh, that's the problem. They just kind of threw the slides back in random envelopes. So I take out these slides and I pull up the first one, and it is it's a line art drawing of a woman's chest, like sides, breasts, stars down the middle. I'm like, okay, maybe this is Virgo or Andromeda. I pull out the second slide, and it's the it's the continuation of a woman's body going further down. And I'm like, what in the world is this? And I look at the rest of the slides, and I look at the envelope, and it's Nut. It's the Egyptian goddess of the sky. And this was a sort of 6-slide, ceiling pano sort of thing that you would project up onto the ceiling. And then again, there was a slide envelope labeled Charlie Brown, and it had Linus inside of it. So no indication about what constellation that actually went to. And again, I doubt that was original 1930s from Zeiss, but they're just little individual slides. So obviously something that was added later. So awesome. All right. Yeah, I think that's it for me. So next up, we have our update on the Big Astronomy project. So take it away.
You're muted, Shannon.
Give me 1 second to get our slides up. I'll be right there. Okay. Hey. Where do I present on this thing?
Up at the top corner.
There we go. It was hidden by the Zoom. All right. Does everyone see the slides now? Okay. So first of all, hello, everyone. I'm Shannon Schmull. We've got Renee Kerrigan and Tiffany Stone-Wolbrecht here from the Big Astronomy Project. So we thought we would give an update because some things are changing due to COVID. If anyone, who here is not familiar with the Big Astronomy Project? I think we can maybe start there to know how much time we need to spend on what the project is. Okay, so we have at least one person. So we're going to go ahead and just give a quick overview of the project. So this is an NSF funded or National Science Foundation funded project where we have many different partners to take on different aspects of the project. So we have overall, the project includes a planetarium show and various resources, both hands-on and virtual. So California Academy of Sciences, led by Ryan Wyatt and his team there, produced a show. It is now complete, and it's called Big Astronomy: People, Places, Discoveries, and it is about astronomy in Chile. And the various STEM careers that go into making big astronomy at major observatories happen. We have Tiffany over at Ward Beecher Planetarium running our distribution and our web portal, our website, which we'll talk a little bit more about. We have Renee at Peoria Riverfront Museum running our social media, and specifically live social media events that are going to be happening as part of the project, where we'll be able to connect visitors and people who see the show to the different STEM careers and the people who work at the observatories, as well as to the activities that we have. We have the Astronomy Society of the Pacific being led by Vivian White there, who is creating a hands-on kit. Those are, oops, sorry, my mouse was weird. Who's making hands-on kits that will be available to planetarians and amateur astronomers. We are researching a new model of extended engagement beyond the dome. And so that's being led here at the Abrams Planetarium at Michigan State University with myself, Dr. Katie Hinko here, and our postdoc, Dr. Jessica Trucks. And then AUI and Aura, who are sort of the overarching observatory, what's the word, entities. They're the ones who manage them, are the PIs on the entire project. So like I said, we are, I don't know what's happening. There we go. So we are creating the show Big Astronomy, People, Places, Discoveries. It is done, and some of you might have seen it at conferences. And so we are looking at how big science happens. We're focusing on careers, and it is bilingual. So we have both an English version and a Spanish version as well. And we are working on additional translations as well, which is something that Tiffany would be able to answer questions about. There is a web portal. It is at bigastronomy.org. So we are extending that website out to include not only distribution, but also additional resources, additional videos, and it will house all of the PDF versions of our hands-on activity kit. I already mentioned the live social media events, which will go on for about 2 years after the show is released. And then these hands-on kits, which planetariums can get. We're also going to have an option, I think, to buy additional ones. And we're going to have versions that you do not need to have a physical kit for, and you can download the sort of PDF information. It includes a really cool Galaxy umbrella, which we are all very excited about, by the way. Seriously.
It's really cool.
All right. The kind of going into starting with the shift that's happening due to COVID. So originally the idea of this project was built on these 3 design principles of engaging people's interests in different ways, allowing agency in how they learn, and supporting people's identities and allowing them to integrate STEM identities into other identities that they have. And we're doing this by providing role models within the show that show them as full people and not just their job, essentially. And so we wanted to sort of center the planetarium show in this model where people either come to the show and study how they exit the show and continue their engagement, or vice versa. Do they use the additional resources, the web portal, the social media events, and so on? And how does that bring them into the show? So it's sort of creating this environment around a planetarium show in the dome and understanding how people navigate between these different resources and extend that engagement beyond the dome. With planetariums still being closed, a lot of them being closed, a lot of us moving to virtual programming, we are shifting that model to what we're calling the Show Plus rather than the Dome Plus, because necessarily now the show can't be shown in domes as much as we would like. And so we're using virtual versions of the show online as sort of a proxy for the dome. And we're going to focus our analysis on the sort of the things surrounding the show, the web portal, the social media, and the hands-on. And that's to help us sort of, we're going to use that to build out these, the resources part and understand that part of the model and develop it further so that we can come back later on down the road and apply it to how we originally planned to do it in the dome and have that piece a lot stronger than we initially planned. So that shift is happening within the research. And because of that, some of the other shifts that we are having or some of the requirements that we might have in showing the show virtually come out of trying to preserve the model as closely as we can, while still trying to make sure that what we're offering planetariums in this era of COVID is something that is helpful and useful for everybody. So related to that is as much as we want to like try to continue this project the way that we originally planned, we also recognize that the world is upside down right now. It's topsy-turvy. We are all trying to adapt, and we want to make sure that this project is something that is useful to you. And if we need to adjust the research end, we can do that. So we do have a survey. We've posted it to Dome Dialogues and on our social media. But there is right there, it's a little bit.ly right there about us trying to get at what would be most helpful for you with a few different options we think we'd be able to pull off, as well as just questions about how COVID has affected you. So it goes beyond just the Planet Big Astronomy itself. But we're going to use this opportunity to try to understand the impact of COVID specifically on planetariums. And we're going to use that data to create a rapid report that we hope to release via the IPS website somehow the exact mechanics we're figuring out, but we want to try to get that report out as quickly as possible to show that how COVID is affecting our sector specifically. All right. Thank you.
Thanks,
Renee.
Shannon. And I just posted that survey link in the chat. So we're going to ask a couple times if you haven't completed that survey, if you are interested in participating in the project, if you would please. So Shannon sort of went over this, but if you're familiar with the Big Astronomy Project, you remember that we were talking so long about how we were planning on having this worldwide premiere of the show. We were trying to get it out to planetariums to premiere the show worldwide on May 2nd. Well, on about March 15th, Shannon, Tiffany, and I we were together actually at that time, and we were realizing, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think this worldwide premiere is going to work. And so we had a leadership team meeting quickly after that, and everyone agreed that we needed to reschedule that premiere date. And so again, if you've been getting our emails or following us on social media, you probably know that we asked to move the premiere date to September 26th. But again, that was probably a little maybe naive of us. I think probably don't all of you remember back in March us trying to make these plans, like maybe in the fall we'll be able to have our big gala, or maybe in the fall, like I know I'm part of GLIPA conference planning. I was ready to get that GLIPA conference open for October on June 1st until we realized, that wasn't going to happen. So if your facility is open on September 26th, and if you've been part of our project already, or would like to join us now, we'd love you to show the film in your dome on September 26th. But if you're not open, we still want it to be useful to you. So we're working on our plan to be able to facilitate live streaming of the Big Astronomy film, either in 360, if we can get that to work, or flat screen. And so based on people's responses so far to the survey, what we think is going to work best for folks is for them to be able to live stream the film for their audiences at their museum or their planetarium at a time that works for them. So it can be part of their virtual content, and hopefully build that around one of the live social media events, educational social media events that our team will be putting on. And so we'd love for there to be some sort of special event at your place on September 26th, either virtually or in person if you are open. But regardless, the show is available now at bigastronomy.org for distribution. So if you are open and would like to show the film, we encourage you to go over there, fill out a form so that you can get either the 4K or the 2K Dome Masters. Shannon, can you go to the next slide, please? So I kind of said this already, I suppose, but I would love it if you could show this film in your dome. Let us know if you're interested in being a research site. Please reach out to Shannon for that, because she'd love to talk to you. And again, starting on the September 26th, our plan is to stream the show first on our Big Astronomy social page. So on the Big Astronomy page on Facebook, our plan will be to stream the film 4 times on September 26th, trying to cover different time zones. We'll do it in 3 in Spanish, 3 in English and 1 in Spanish, because so far our audience is skewed much more towards English speakers. And then we're also on that date going to have 2 of our live educational events. We'll be talking with the California Academy of Sciences and their production team, and a little bit about how they created the film, some of the unique things that went into creating this show, which was filmed on site in Chile. And then we'll also be talking with the folks at Astronomical Society of the Pacific, showing off some of the educational activities that go along with the show and talking about how you can get them. And then starting in October, we'll be having educational live streams featuring staff in Chile at the observatories. And we'll be getting that schedule published in advance so that if you want to have an event at your planetarium or your museum, either virtually or in person, you can maybe schedule it around one of these live streams if you want to sort of tag onto it. And Paige asked if we can target some advertising to Spanish speakers in the U.S. That is a good idea, and we'll definitely try to do that.
All right, thank you, Renee. So talking more about how we are trying to adapt the project to meet the needs of the current times, we want to release as Renee mentioned, the show's been out. It's out right now, available for download for free. You just have to fill out a small form on our website. If you want the 4K version, the highest resolution Dome Masters, there is a small fee that covers shipping of a hard drive that you keep, and very, very straightforward. But for those of you who aren't open and still want to be involved in the project, we are going to make the show available for virtual field trip programming. We will also allow people to stream it for public virtual programs. We right now are working on trying to figure out a way to stream the 360 version of the show. I think that would be really neat and engaging. But we haven't quite figured out the logistics of that yet. So we can't really share those details with you just yet, but we hope that that can work out. And if not, we also have the flat screen version that we can allow for streaming. The stipulation, and this is due really to, because this is part of research project, is that we ask that you do not archive a streamed version of the show in public spaces. We don't want it to be, we want the classrooms and the public to come to your planetarium, either physically or virtually, to see the show. So we don't want it out there archived where anyone can watch it in public spaces. See, Big Astronomy's social events, we hope to start scheduling those in advance. As Renee said, we're using the September premiere as sort of a launch of these live events. We've already had a couple, but we're really going to pick things up on September 26th. We're going to offer lots of these really great engaging live events, and we want to schedule them out a little bit in advance so that you guys have time to potentially schedule virtual programming around some of our live events. You can utilize them in your programming for your planetarium. Can we do the, Shannon, I think that's you.
Unmute. All right. Also, a quick note about the educational kits. The picture that we have there is sort of an older version from when we were beta testing it, or rather when Viv was doing that. And so there are going to be 7 activities now. They will be related to dark skies, light pollution, the Milky Way, multi-wavelength observing, various different cultural stories around astronomy, and sort of this picture an astronomer, like who is an astronomer, what work do they do, again kind of getting at the careers, as well as there is supposed to be sort of this postcard that had a built-in diffraction grating, so that people would be able to take that from the show, have an activity to take home with them, and continue looking at the different spectra of different kinds of light. So if you do plan on running the show in your dome, we're still hoping to get that activity to you in that original form. However, with things needing to be virtual more, kits will still be made available again to amateur astronomers and planetarians if you'd like to use them as demos on the website, and we'll work on getting sort of some tips and guidance on how to use them as demos virtually. And we're also going to, again, have all of these on the website in a PDF form. So if you wanted to sort of make your own version of the kit, you could. But it's also going to have these at-home activities that you can easily do at home as a parent with your kids that you could encourage afterwards. And we're encouraging people to post what they're doing with a hashtag called Big Astronomy DIY. That's partially so that we can try to collect data in public spaces related to the hands-on kits from people who are doing this at home. And that's going to become more important in this realm for our data collection, considering we cannot do field studies with people using the hands-on kits and places. And also we expect some planetariums might not want to do that, having activities that require people touching things. So we are going to have those, we're shifting those right now, but we are trying to make sure that there's sort of a version you can do as a demo and something that relates directly to the activities for families to do at home that you can also encourage them.
Okay, so how can you guys get involved? I hope that you guys are as excited about our project as we are. It's something a little different, and against all the challenges that we've all faced, it's really exciting that we're able to do what we can to meet the times and to help the planetarium community however we can. So please, I encourage you to try to get involved with the project. We have a lot of exciting things to offer, especially online now. The first way you can do is really simple. You can sign up for our newsletter. It's on the front page of bigastronomy.org. Towards the bottom, you put your email in, and we don't bug you too much, I promise, but we will send you any updates that we have on the project. Another really easy way is just to follow us on social media. I believe we have Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And we try to keep those all updated, and they will all have the latest information, particularly on the live events as we move forward. Please participate in research. Shannon mentioned in the comments that most of that's going to be done virtually now because of travel restrictions. So if you want to be a part of research, please email her. We would love to hear from you. And share our live events to your audiences. Utilize this as content for your dome. Okay, can you go to the next slide, Shannon? Thank you. So I'm gonna so Shannon said it and Renee said it. I'm gonna say it now too. Please fill out our survey. It's really gonna help our community. Yes, it's gonna help inform the Big Astronomy project. There's a few questions there to help us understand how the best next steps to take. But also there are some general questions about COVID impact on our community. And we wanna share that data, as Shannon mentioned, through IPS. And so we can really try to, as a community, understand where we're at. So your data is really important. It'll take maybe 5 minutes to fill out. So please, please, please do that. This is all of our information. You can reach out to me for distributions or if you see any typos on the website. Renee does live events, Shannon, again, with the research, and Vivian at Astronomical Society of the Pacific can answer any questions about our toolkits. Do we have any questions so far?
I wanted to just jump in and say that the toolkits will be distributed to Vivian will reach out to the sites that had already signed up for the toolkits to make sure that you want your toolkit. So if you said back in October or November of last year that you were going to participate, you wanted one of these physical toolkits, she's planning on reaching out to make sure you're open, that it doesn't just get mailed to your facility if it's closed. So they will be going out, and starting on September 1st, those will be going out if you want it.
Also related to that, we do have a set of toolkits that are set aside for research sites. And we had started getting all of those lined up before COVID, and now things have shifted. So we do have some, if you end up being a research site and you need it, we will have a set for that as well.
And I also thought I'd mention just the live educational events that we're planning on the Big Astronomy Facebook page. The ones in October that we're working on with the observatory staff are going to be sort of like Meet CTIO. So it's going to be an overview of the facility and its history and the staff that work there. Will be, and then one for Gemini South, one for ALMA, and probably one for the new Vera Rubin Observatory, which is the official name of what we've all been calling LSST, the Large Synoptic Survey Telescope. And then starting in November, we'll have more sort of one-on-one events that will be featuring one of the education and public outreach officers at the observatories, sort of interviewing or guiding a conversation with one of the staff members there, just talking about what their job is, what their daily life is like at their job, and then a little bit of them as a whole person again. So what got them interested in astronomy, a little bit about their family, maybe if they're interested in talking about that, or what they enjoy doing. And again, this is all driven by the goal of the project, which is one of the goals of the project is to help people understand that it takes diverse people, it takes diverse skills to make big astronomy work. And also to provide examples so that young people can see themselves in those roles, which we all know is important. And I think that's it for a wrap up for the update from our project. And again, we're leaning toward this plan, but if the survey results tell us something different is needed, we can try to shift towards a different plan, which is why we're pushing that survey so strongly. But thank you everyone for listening. Please send us any questions in the chat if you haven't had a chance to, and we will try to respond.
And just a quick plug for IPS next week. Tiffany and I will be talking more about big astronomy at 6:30 Eastern time. I don't remember what time that is.
10:30 for the standard time.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And then at 20 minutes later, so 6:50 Eastern, 10:50 UT, there will be a storytelling panel as well that will feature Ryan Wyatt, and he will also be talking about big astronomy. So if you are going to the VCon for IPS, you can catch us there as well.
Well, thank you, ladies. And I will let you know, I'm excited that I will be moderating both of those. So you'll be in good hands on Monday night. So I'm back. Thank you again, as always, to Mike Smale for filling in as co-host for a little bit. And so now we've got a very special guest from across the ages. Let me see where he is. Mark Webb, everybody. No, it's not Mark. He about lost it for a second. I'm looking. I believe. I believe he's from the 17th century. Sir, if you could make yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to introduce to today's e-conference Galileo Galilei.
Grazie. Why is there? I see a strange name down here in the corner. What is that supposed to be? In fact, what is this whole machine you've given me? I don't understand what's going on here.
Galileo, you've been transported to the 21st century.
Transported?
The science may be a bit much, but you are now you are yourself in 1612, but it is 2020. Does that make any sense at all?
No.
Okay, that's fine. So somehow, through the magic of science, we have you here with us today. We are a group of educators, teachers, physicists, mathematicians, your sort of folk. And we would love to get a little bit of insight into your life there in Italy back in the 17th century.
Well, I could. Is this the same group that I talked to esteemed scientists several weeks ago about some of my discoveries made using my instrument called the telescope?
We have a few of those people with us today, so yes.
Well, we never got into what I have used this information, or what this information has done to me, because it's changed my life. I found all these wonderful things. I found the mountains and craters on the moon. I found the little moons going around Jupiter. I found thousands of stars never seen before. I turned my telescope to the heavens. But as I kept finding these things, I realized that everything I ever learned from the time I was a young boy studying with the Brothers of Ambrosia, all the way through the years while I was a student at the University of Pisa, while all the things I taught as a professor at the University of Pisa, all of those things I taught while I was a professor at Padua, everything I ever learned or taught about the way the heavens works was wrong. I was not amused. This actually reminds me of a story about an old hermit, a recluse. He lived all by himself. And he knew two things very well. First, he knew all about cows, because cows was the way he made his living. And the other thing he knew was beautiful music, because he raised songbirds. And he knew all of their songs until one day he's wandering about his property, and he comes by a stone wall and he hears a song. He said, I never heard a bird make a song like that before. I have to find it. And he wandered to the edge of his property, and on the other side of the stone wall, there's a young man, and the young man is blowing into a stick. He's playing the flute. The old man said, that's amazing. You're making music with this stick. I'll trade you one of these cows for that stick. Would you trade a cow for the stick?
It would have to depend on the stick, I would assume.
Well, think of it this way. You can feed your family for a year with a cow. How long do you think you'll feed them with a stick? Not very long. So the old man trades the cow for the stick, and he goes back to his house, and he tries to make music with the stick. He can't make music, but he heard music coming out of that stick. And he thought, I wonder if there are other ways to make beautiful music. I must find out. And he wandered out from his property, and he goes a short ways, and he comes to an old stone house. And inside the house, he hears, he says, what is that? He knocks on the door, come in. Inside the house, there's a man with a block of wood on his shoulder and a stick in his hand. He's playing the violin. Another way to make music. He wanders on. He comes to a chapel. He says, I have to sit down and think about this. He goes into the chapel. The door. It's making music. He wanders on. He comes to a tavern. Inside the tavern, he hears. He says, what is that? He goes in. There's a gentleman with a glass. He's making music with the glass. He wanders on. He sees trumpets. He sees organs. He sees drums. One day he sees a mosquito fly by, flapping its wings. It makes a humming sound. One day he sees a bee fly by, flapping its wings. It makes a buzzing sound. And one day he sees a cricket rubbing its legs together. It makes a chirping sound. And then one day he captures a great big bug called cicada. Have you heard cicada? I can't begin to make the sound that bug makes, but he says, I'm going to find out how this bug makes its music. And he held the bug's mouth shut, and the sound kept coming out. He held the wings so the wings couldn't move. The sound kept coming out. He held the legs so the legs couldn't rub together, and the sound kept coming out. He turned the bug over, and beneath the bug were all of these tiny scales, and he held them down nice and tight, and the sound kept coming out. He lifted the scales, and beneath the scales were the tiniest of ligaments. And he thought, I'll stop the ligaments with my fingers, but they were too large. So he took a pin and he tried to stop the sound with the pin. And in the process of trying to stop the sound, he transfixed the bug, and it died. And he never found out how that bug made its music. And I always learned how, according to Aristotle, the heavens worked. And at the center of all things was the earth. And around the earth moved the moon, and beyond the moon moved Mercury and Venus, the sun, and Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. And I'm beginning to think that is not right. several years ago, I read a book by a gentleman named Nicholas Copernicus. Have you heard of Copernicus? A cleric in the church, not perhaps the best writer, but he wrote a book, and in it, he proposed a new way to explain the motions in the heavens. And he put at the center of all things, not the earth, but the sun. And around the sun, he moved Mercury. And beyond Mercury, he moved Venus going around the sun. And beyond Venus, the earth going around the sun, with the moon going around Mercury, the earth. And beyond earth, Mars and Jupiter and Saturn, all going around the sun. And I'm beginning to think this gentleman, Nicholas Copernicus, is right. And now when I look up into the heavens, I see a gigantic book. It's the book of nature, the book of the universe. And do you think that book is written in Italian? No. Do you think it's written in English? No. It's written in the language of mathematics. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, circles, squares, triangles. And if you learn to read this language of mathematics, you too can learn to read the book of the universe. Well, those kind of things have changed my life completely. Over the last couple of years, I've gone to Rome. I've given several lectures down there on the discoveries I've made. I've even had dinner with the Pope. Oh, he has a good cook. And they all have questions to ask me about some of my discoveries, or some of them ask just about what I've been doing lately. And I heard a lady a moment ago talking about asking an astronomer how they came to their life. And I would be happy to answer any questions any of you might have about my experiments, my life, my times, or perhaps how I became an astronomer. So do we have any questions?
Thank you, Senator. If anybody wants to ask a question of Galileo, I mean, this is really a once in several centuries opportunity. Go on ahead and raise your digital hands. This is all so foreign to Mr. Galileo.
What is a digital hand?
We'll explain it a little bit. If anybody has a question for Galileo, please go on ahead and share. Let's see what we've got. We're waiting for some questions that people are writing out. What did this is from Ian? What did the Pope's cook cook?
Oh, they had calamari. We had pasta with the very, very fine noodles. He makes very good noodles. We had a nice ensalada. And then he's very good at making desserts. And his dolces are just wonderful. And there were like 12 different desserts that we could try to eat. And actually, I must say, I tried all of them.
I'm glad you did. As a man of science, your job is to experience and to test things, over and over and over again. So that it's clearly just the scientific method. From Susan, do you have any students that you are currently mentoring?
Oh, well, I always have several students that I'm working with. Let's see. None of them are exceptional right now. Part of the problem is I've just moved back to Firenze from Padua. While I was living in Padua, the Doge gave me a nice raise when I developed the telescope, but he didn't give me the raise until my old contract was going to run out. Well, I wasn't going to wait around for 2.5 more years before I got my raise. So I arranged to have the Grand Duke bring me back to Firenze. So all of my students are new students right now. I can't be positive which ones would turn out to be good in the long run. And it's very difficult. I have had some students that were not particularly ethical. There's one, Baldassar Capra. He copied my little book, The Use and Operation of the Military and Geometric Compass, but he put down as its author, Baldassar Capra. He started selling my little compasses as though he were the inventor. He was taking credit. I had to sue him, and that student of mine ended up having to go away in disgrace after giving me a small tribute for his despicable behavior.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Galileo, Carol asks, what were you able to see with your very first telescope? And what took a refinement to see?
Well, the very first telescope, about all you could see would be buildings and things like that. Even with the 8x telescope, you couldn't see any details, for example, on the moon. So the very first one, the 3x, was really a toy. That's all it was. And it was fun, and Sarpi loved it, but it really wasn't useful for very much at all. The 8x, you could actually, from Padua, you could read inscriptions on walls in Venice. It was that good. But it wasn't until, it must have been almost December. In fact, it was in December that I was first able to turn the first 20x telescope at the moon and see all of the little wiggly line where the terminator should have been nice and smooth, see all the little dark circles, all the little light dots that made me realize that the moon was covered with mountains and valleys and hills and craters. So it was about 5 months almost.
Wonderful. All right, let's see what else we've got here for questions. I know we only have you for a few more minutes, sir. Colin asks, what is one thing that you always wanted to do but didn't manage to?
Oh, that is a very interesting question. I will never get to do it either because he's been dead for a long time. But I would have liked to have had a nice discussion with Aristotle and set him straight on some of his misconceptions. Now, I understand he was a great debater, and perhaps I would have a hard time debating him. But I think if I could show him the way things actually behaved, he would use his own senses, his own ability to think, and he would come to realization that he was wrong and that I am correct.
As always. All right. And then I think we'll do our last question today, Galileo, from Karu. Your telescope had a very narrow field of view. How did you clarify the movement of Jupiter's moons?
Well, it takes a lot of observations. In fact, I must have observed, almost every night for 3 months. But there's one thing that people don't realize about my telescope. There's actually a cone of observation that you can see behind the telescope. I'll bring it right here, right now. So if you're looking through the telescope and you move your head side to side, up and down, you actually can see a little bit more than 1/2. Now, of course, you're changing your perspective a little bit, but it does allow me to watch the moons of Jupiter. Now, they don't go fast enough to disappear very quickly, but over the period of a whole night, you can actually observe the motions of those moons without much trouble. And one of the problems that I have is you probably may already know, while you're watching, the Jupiter moves right across the field of view of my telescope. So I have to re-aim, and it's very hard to re-aim. One of the reasons I have so much trouble convincing some of my friends, the philosophers, that Aristotle was wrong and that I have observed things like the moons going around Jupiter, is that by the time I align Jupiter in the telescope and I ask them to come over, they hum, they haw, they wiggle, they I don't know what they're doing. But by the time they get their eye onto the eyepiece of my telescope, the Jupiter has moved out of the field of view. I have to realign it, and we have to start all over again. And they go through that whole, I'm coming. It's hard to deal with philosophers.
Any other questions for Galileo this afternoon before we let you go back to the ages? All right, Galileo, thank you so much for joining us today. Give our best to the Doge, and
I'm not going to see him for a while. I'm not planning on going back to Venice.
At the very least, let's see you again sometime in the future.
Arrivederci.
Grazie. Ladies and gentlemen, Galileo Galilei. It's amazing what you get here in these e-conferences. And so now the time has come It is the time that most of you have really been waiting for. It is, what are we at? 4 months in the making. It is time for longest German words of the year. Ladies and gentlemen, all the way from Berlin, Anna Green.
Hi, everyone. So I have a bit of a bonus before we dive into the long words. And so we're going to play an additional game, if I can share my screen. That one. All right, is that working?
Bonus.
Cool. Now I can't get to any of the controls I need. There. All right, so we're going to have fun with idiomatic phrases. These are the things that are just super difficult to learn no matter what language you're learning. They're those things that you've heard since you were kids, and you often, or not often, but sometimes you don't even know why we say what we say, but we say it anyway. And so I thought we could have some fun with some of the German idiomatic phrases. So the first one is die Katze im Sack kaufen. So to buy a cat in a bag. And I should have asked this before, but I'd love for you guys to actually unmute on this one and just say what you think it could possibly mean.
Is it like the cat's in the bag kind of thing?
That would seem to make sense.
Is this related to invite trouble?
Potentially it could, I suppose.
Does it have something to do with the cat being able to get out of the bag, like with claws?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on what you do with the bag after you, or the cat after you buy it in the bag.
Ooh, touche, touche.
Would it be something like you don't know if the cat is live or dead?
Yes, that is a little bit more along the lines.
Buying an unknown quantity.
Exactly. So it's analogous with, in English, to buy a pig in a poke, which I actually didn't know that's what that meant. I've heard people say it, like what? But yeah, so basically it's something that's sold or bought without the buyer knowing the true nature or value, especially if you buy something without inspecting it beforehand. So that is to buy a cat in a bag. And my boyfriend and his friends use this all the time because they make bets with each other constantly. So, and one of the things too I love to do with idiomatic phrases from other languages is use them literally translated in English, because I don't know, that's how I am, and I think it's funny. But yes, so that would be to buy a pig in a poke, or to buy something without inspecting it. Knapp daneben ist auch vorbei. So just next to it is also over.
Close but no cigar.
Yes, exactly. So close but no cigar almost doesn't count. So
almost doesn't count.
Exactly. Except in horseshoes and hand grenades. Nett ist die kleine Schwester von Scheiße. So nice is the little sister of poop. This one gets used quite a bit too. Sometimes instead of being the little sister, they say little brother, but the sentiment is still there.
Does this have to do with farting?
No.
This is like a student. When I asked her when I asked my student what nice meant, because they kept saying nice and I was like so random, they said nice is what you say when you don't really care but have to say something.
That's on the right track. So yeah, so basically it's a response. Like if someone tells you that something or someone is nice, but like it's in a disappointing way or a backhanded way, this is what you would respond with. It's like, oh, that's nice. And then you would say nice is the little sister of poop.
Wow.
Ich drücke dir die Daumen. I press my thumbs for you.
Does this have to do with trolls?
No.
Wait, it's not trolls, fairies.
Moose.
No. Oh, I see where you're going, but you also know what this means because you've heard me use it.
Does it mean I don't care?
No, quite the opposite, actually.
Is it like crossing fingers, something goes
Yes,
well?
exactly. So in Germany, we don't cross our fingers, we press our thumbs for luck. So I don't know, can you also see me right now?
Cough.
Can you see my video? Okay, so like, I looked this up because I wanted to know why both things are for luck. And so keeping your fingers crossed was what I read was it was a way to signal that you were a Christian to other Christians at the beginning of Christianity in a time of persecution, and then that just kind of translated eventually into a luck thing. I find the German way cooler. So basically, something that you really, really want and you need like luck for, there's like an imp trying to like ruin that for you, or like a goblin or something. And so basically you hold the goblin down and trap him so that he can't mess up what you're hoping for. I've seen Germans do it this way, and I've also seen them just do it this way. But you know, I'd rather trap the imp better, so. Ein extra Wurst verlangen. Verlangen. So to request an extra sausage.
Yes, I believe this phrase means sausages are delicious.
Well, that would be Würstchen sind lecker.
Is this Friday night?
This is true. So.
Is it the German equivalent of Oliver Twist? Please, sir, can I have one more?
I mean, kind of. I mean, at least if it's with food.
Is it just for excess?
Kind of. We're on the right track.
Or like adding one more thing at the end.
Yeah, it's to ask for special treatment.
Yeah, one should be enough. One should be enough.
I mean,
that's what
if you're getting a Teugen bratwurst, those are like super big. So yes, one should be enough. Da steppt der Bär, or da brennt die Luft. So the bear dances there, or the air burns there.
Okay, is this one about farting?
No.
Is it a reference to a strange place?
I suppose what it's talking about could take place in a strange place.
Is it talking about the north, the far north?
No.
I just like the breakdancing bear. That's good enough for me.
Is it talking about being in a place that's oh, never mind.
Oh, sorry, I didn't realize you were going to jump in there.
No?
Yeah, so it means that a party will be good.
The bear's been dancing in these Eve conferences for months.
Yep. I know some of you know this one too. Hamsterkauf, a hamster purchase.
Buying a lot?
Yes.
Maybe this is the impulse buy.
I mean, it could also be an impulse buy. It's a little bit more than just buying a lot though.
Hoarding.
Yes. Purchasing goods just to hoard them. So you saw at the beginning of all of this in March, you saw so many articles about people hamster toilet paper and flour. Yep.
So the verb, so if we were to change this into sort of an English verb, hamster coughing. So hamster coughing the toilet paper. Okay.
I would just say that they're hamstering things.
Wow.
Ich verstehe nur Bahnhof. I only understand train station.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, an apology for your limitations in the language.
Yes.
I only understand it straightforward.
Yeah, like it's It's well, it's the English equivalent is it's all Greek to me. But like if you say Bahnhof, it can be apologetic, but it's also like a slightly, I don't know, I would think of it as slightly less than apologetic. Like I say it to my coworkers all the time, even though it's not true. But yeah, basically because like when you're traveling, often one of the few words that people know is where's the trains, like how to ask for the train station. Seinen Senf dazugeben, to add one's mustard.
I love the gift choice here. It's my favorite scene.
To add one's mustard.
A little spice in life.
That would
cut the mustard.
It's my beer.
no.
My opinion. To steal the show.
No. To add or to put in one's 2 cents. So you gotta add in what you have to say. Melinda, what you said, the spice of life, that would be das Salz in die Suppe, so the salt in the soup.
Oh.
And for the last idiomatic phrase, Schwein haben, to have a pig.
That's
Similar to have a cow.
No.
Like when you're upset, you don't have a cow.
No, it's actually the opposite.
Yeah.
Or
You're elated or you're satisfied with
To
life.
have plenty.
kind of. So it's to have a stroke of luck. Which
Oh.
also around Christmas time, you can find like little pigs made out of marzipan to hide in people's stockings for good luck. So you give them a pig.
So a full pig is the equivalent of a rabbit's foot.
Yes,
Okay. It's a good exchange rate, honestly.
I'd say so. And cuter. Not dismembered. So, okay. So that was some fun with idiomatic phrases. And now, what you've actually been waiting for, the long German words of the year.
Here we go. So word number 1, launch that poll.
Das Sternentstehungsgebiete. Das Sternentstehungsgebiete. So is that star magnitude measuring system or star formation regions?
I'm really surprised this did become an IPS session. Wow, it is neck and neck here with about 90% of the vote in. Okay, we're gonna let it go for a little while. There's about 3 or 4 of you haven't gone yet, and that could make the difference.
See, this is why it's important to vote, people.
Okay, with about 90% in, we can say roughly 55% of you say star formation regions. The other 45 say star magnitude measuring systems. Anna, what's the correct answer?
Stern is star and Gebiete is regions. So it is the star formation regions. I see
Good.
some elation going on.
Good job, room. Good job. All right. Word number 2, and I will tell you, you need to expand the window. Here we go.
Ugh. Die Europäische Gemeinschaft für Verbraucherschutzdurchsetzungsgesetz Ermächtigungsübertragungsverordnung. Die Europäische Gemeinschaft für Verbraucherschutzdurchsetzungsgesetz Ermächtigungsübertragungsverordnung. So is that the European Regulation for Fire Safety Materials in Public Buildings or the European Community Consumer Protection Enforcement Act?
Those first 2 people were very, very, very confident in their answer.
Was one of them John? Yeah. Now, I will say that often if you see this, the first 2 words would be abbreviated just to EG to shorten it. But that's not fun when we're doing long German words. So you got the full version.
And I believe, Anna, you said this was 97 letters long.
Yes.
Okay.
Or 97 characters. So I guess actually 94 letters.
None of you are going to count it, though. So, all right. Oh, we still got good 1/5 of our voters have not figured anything out yet. Although it is pretty strongly, looks to be 60 to 40. European Community Consumer Protection Enforcement Act is at 60%. European regulations for fire safety materials in public buildings. Anna, what is the correct answer?
It is the European Community Consumer Protection Enforcement Act.
Woo! 133 days into this, and you're 2 for 2, room 2 for 2. So, and now what you've all been waiting for, the longest German word of the year at an incredible 80 letters long. Here we go.
Die Donau-Dampfschifffahrts-Elektrizitäten-Hauptbetriebwerk Bauunterbeamtengesellschaft. Die Donau-Dampfschifffahrts-Elektrizitäten-Hauptbetriebswerk Bauunterbeamtengesellschaft. So is that the Association for Subordinate Officials of the Head Office Management of the Danube Steamboat Electrical Services? Or is it the Union for Electrical Navigation Equipment Engineers stationed aboard fishing boats on the Danube? And Paige, I will put all the words in the chat, and I will also post them all to Facebook. And since this is the last one, I will take the Word document that I have been compiling, and I can make that available somewhere as well, and the PowerPoint that I just did as well. And Patty, I love that you need a pig.
All right, with about 85% of the vote in, we'll let those last little precincts make their way in. About 2/3 of you say the Association for Subordinate Officials of the Head Office Management of the Danube Steamboat Electrical Service. The rest of you say the Union for Electrical Navigation Equipment Engineers stationed aboard fishing boats on the Danube. Anna, what is the correct answer for this longest German word of the week?
It is the Association for Subordinate Officials of the Head Office Management of the Danube Steamboat Electrical Services.
I was going to save this one for later, but we got to use it now. Good job, everybody. That's amazing. Amazing. All those idioms, 3 for 3 on there. How many of you, by a show of hands, got all 3 correct this week? Wow.
Yay, Mike. Good job.
Look at all of you. This is...
Oh, that's awesome, Noreen. Great.
Mike, I'm so proud of you, Mike. This is great. So with that, we bring our longest German words of the week to an end for the summer. So just a huge round of applause to Anna. Just what an amazing host. So really just so proud. Just tears.
Well, thank you all for playing along, and this actually forced me to work on my German a little bit more, which is always good. So thank you all.
Of course, let Brian know thank you for his two guest appearances. So
I definitely will.
All right. Well, thank you, Anna. Now we move on to basically the other really popular. They're all popular, but this one's unique because I believe this was the first recurring segment we ever had. And I'm happy that we get to see deeper into the collection today than ever before. Ladies and gentlemen, back to Chicago. It's the Record Shop with Mike Smale.
Hey. All right. So this is the 13th edition of the Record Shop. And for those of you who are new, we're basically just going to go through a couple of records from my collection. I'll show them off, and then I'll share some links in the chat about where you can go purchase them, listen to them, things of that nature. Since we're in the spirit of extra things, I'm going to throw out one more cool record that actually I discovered the connection while we were doing research on the Zeiss. So one of the folks who had actually wrote a newspaper article. He worked for a newspaper in Jackson, Mississippi in the mid 70s. It was a guy by the name of Bill Kopenbarger. And he wrote an article about, this was when it was looking at the process of the Jackson schools, them deciding they wanted a city planetarium and the fundraising and the community and things like that. And I saw his name, and you can actually read the section of the article on Glenn Walsh's Adler History website. And I saw the guy's name, Bill Kopenbarger, and Kopenbarger is not a very common last name. And there is a musician, a guy by the name of Jesse Kopenbarger, who's also from Southern Mississippi, who has released a good bit of music. He's done a couple records with his fronting a musical group called the Color Revolt, kind of an alt college rock thing. And then more recently, and actually the most recent record I just got in the mail day before yesterday, he does some solo records under the name El Oboe. And I dug into it, and it turns out that Jesse Kopenbarger is Bill Kopenbarger's grandson. So if you like some rock music, or in this case, this is a little bit, the El Oboe solo releases are a little more of like an indie folk thing. You can look those up. I don't have those on my slide that I'll share at the end, but I'll copy some info later about that. All right, so the first record that I actually wanted to talk about today is a record by a performer who goes by the name Pluto Solar. And this is a release called Quasar. And this is, first off, a really funky little wood contraption here. You can see on the back, based on the imaginary science fiction movie Quasar. And this was designed as, this is kind of electronic music, and it was designed, again, as the score for an imaginary sci-fi film. And it's got this cue for Quasar, this weird wood shape. So the first thing you actually have to do is disassemble this thing. So we pop off the wing nut, pull out the screw, get the washer out of the way. The wooden piece slides off. There's a little sticker that came with it in there. And then when you pull it open, this is just like a balsa wood kind of thing. There's a huge a wall of text that is the story of this fictional science fiction film about a crew who is out the interstellar research ship Quasar, and they're studying this impenetrable wall of fog in the proximity of a yellow dwarf star in the constellation Pavo, and yada yada yada. And then on the back side of it, on the inside, there's a nice little sort of kind of inverted carved ship. There's a little spaceship there and some stars. And then the record itself is a 10-inch record. And again, this is a little handmade trimmed down sleeve. So a 10-inch record. I think there's 6 songs, 2, 3, 4. Oh no, sorry, 9 tracks total between the two. And this is very straightforward, electronic-y, spacey music. It sounds like the weird kind of bleeps and bloops that you might expect to hear if you were in a spaceship out in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, Patty, I mean, it's very much like a work of art in and of itself. There are 2 Pluto Solar records. They both have the heavy wooden construction. The other one is a square. There's also a couple of CDs, and they also have those kind of wooden cases. This record came out quite some time ago, but I did happen to find, and I'm going to copy it into the chat right now. There are 2 copies of this record. He's a German musician based out of Munster. There are 2 copies of this record available in the Green Hell web store. Green Hell is a German record label and distro. And it was like €7 and like €7 to ship or something, really cheap. So if you look it up, you can find some actual videos. You can listen to the audio on YouTube, but if it seems like the kind of thing you might enjoy, there are at least 2 copies available on the internet right now at that link. And I think there were only 120 or 130 of these originally made. So it's effectively way out of print. Very, very difficult to find. So that is Pluto Solar. Next up, give me a second. What we have next, this is the 14 LP box set of the Japanese band Envy. And this is called Invisible Will, Recurring Ebbs and Flows. And I mean, it weighs easily 10 pounds. There are 14 records in here. And this was a collection. So Envy has been a band since the early 90s. And in 2013, to celebrate their 20th year as a band and the record label Temporary Residence's 20th birthday of releasing records, they compiled every song that Envy had released up to this point. It's 95 songs altogether. So they went and got everything off all their little 7-inches and full-length albums and put it together in this giant deep dish pizza box. And the color is actually a kind of like holographic moon. I don't know how well that comes through on the camera, but it's really, really shiny, really shimmery. And then inside, there's also a photo book and like 2-hour DVD of concert performances. And what's really neat here is each of the 14 records just comes in a sleeve. And then on the flip side of each sleeve is a different picture of the moon. Now I've laid them all out. They don't all like magically match up together or something, but you have some like this where you can again just see sort of a thin lunar limb. You have others where I guess this is, here we have, another lunar limb, just a little bit bigger. And I'm going to dig in here because there are a couple cases where there are like 2 that line up. So let me, 14 records, kind of a pain to sift through here. So here's an example of 2 of them. So we have I and J and K and L, and when you match them up there, you get a nice little crescent across them. So the music itself, the earlier Envy music is all like post-hardcore. So it's punk, it's loud, it's screamed vocals. But then the stuff that comes a little bit later on gets a little bit more into kind of symphonic, almost like soundtrack-esque, big sweeping swells. And then also included in the 100-page photo book are lyrics for everything in both Japanese and English. So you can listen along to those. And the language used on the songs is it's a mix of both. So Envy has since also released a couple records since 2013. Since this point, their new record, what is it? It's called The Crimson Something. The Fallen Crimson came out earlier this year, and share you the link here. This is still available. It's not cheap. It's about $200. So again, 14 new. It's about $200. There were 1,000 copies pressed, 500 copies on black vinyl, which is what I have, and then there's 250 on clear and 250 on kind of a gray marble. So you can actually get the black set there on their Bandcamp, and then their official website, Envy Band Official, is down there at the bottom as well. Remember, next Friday will be Bandcamp Fridays. First Friday of the month, Bandcamp waives all of their artists' fees. So any money you spend on music through bandcamp.com on the first Friday of the month, all of it, 100% goes directly to the bands and musicians, not just the 85% that normally does. All right, last but not least, we're going to veer hard back into planetariums because that's what we all do. That's where we all are. And if any of you happened to see California Academy's virtual nightlife last night, you got a little bit of a spoiler of this section. For that, I apologize. But what we're going to talk about is the Planetarium Lecture Series. Now, this was put out in the late 60s by the Morrison Planetarium in San Francisco. If we take a look here, this is the cover. It was a 5-record series. This was the first record called Life Among the Stars. It was about the possibilities for life out there in the universe. And something really cool about this whole series, and I think maybe what made this as successful as it was, is these planetarium presentations, these lectures as they called them, are not just hard science lectures. They're not just straight astronomy talks. They veer into cultural touchstones, science fiction, and it's a science fiction. It's a real nice balance across all of these. Up there in the corner, you'll see a little Stellar Ventures label. Stellar Ventures was sort of a house imprint label that released these. And then there's a little sticker for the Optica company. Optica was a storefront in East Oakland that sold like telescope lenses and binoculars and accessories. And then they also distributed these. And then the records themselves feature this guy up here in the corner, Hubert J. Bernard, who was a lecturer at the Morrison Planetarium for upwards, if not over 20 years. He also worked for the San Francisco Examiner as a reporter and an editor. And Hubert had what he referred to as a hit production style, where he would combine the sort of dogged reporter's acumen in pursuing the truth, along with the sort of voice of the expert to impart astronomical information, and then also the enthusiasm to really help sell guests on these on this content. So 5 record series. The first one, Life Among the Stars, about the possibility for life elsewhere in the universe. The second one is called The Christmas Star, all about possible scientific explanations for the Star of Bethlehem. The third one is called The UFOs, dipping right into claimed sightings by people like Clyde Tombaugh and pilots, looking into what these unidentified flying objects might be. And then the fourth was called Mysteries of Mars. The first 2 came out in 1966. The next 2 came out in 1967. So this was still 4 years before we'd even landed on Mars. And it's pretty great on the backside. There's a photo of Mars taken by Mariner 4. And the caption says, "This photo, which has been called the most remarkable scientific photograph ever taken, is the famous Frame 11 relayed back to Earth by Mariner 4. So again, back not that long ago, this was the most remarkable photograph ever taken. So we've come a long way. The fifth record is called The Other Moons. It starts with the Earth's moon, and then goes out into other moons in our solar system, and then further off into other moons and worlds that could exist elsewhere in the universe. I actually don't have a copy of that one just yet. These records on the whole are not that hard to find. There's a couple copies on eBay pretty regularly. Discogs, which is a record tracking website, you can find them on there. There are also some variations to some of these. For example, there are both black and white and color versions of all 3 of these. So there's a color cover of the Christmas Star that's a solid red. There's a black and white cover of the UFOs. And then there's also a color cover variant of Mysteries of Mars that's red and yellow. So that's pretty cool. So like I said, it's pretty easy to find. You can look these up online and you can find information. But what I think is extra special and what very few people actually know about is this was not the only planetarium lecture series that Morrison released. There was a second planetarium lecture series. This planetarium lecture series had at least one release. This one is called Taurus. And if we look down there at the bottom, you can see, get my directions mixed up here, Taurus the Bull, Zodiacal Constellations, lecture number Z for Zodiac 3. And you got the nice Hevelius Taurus art there. And we flip it over on the back. We find our buddy Hubert J. Bernard. We find the other 5 releases from the series. And then a quick overview of what all is discussed in this lecture. So there's the astronomy. We talk about the Crab Nebula, the star clusters, T Tauri stars, binary stars. They dip into the astrology a little bit. They don't shy away from that. They cite examples of horoscopes, conflicting horoscopes for people supposedly born under the sign of Taurus. But what's really interesting is that if you will not find anything about this online anywhere. I dug into US copyright, and in 1973, Bernard trademarked his Taurus lecture for this release. He didn't trademark any other lectures, so with any of the other zodiac constellations, nor have I been able to find any information about there being more to the second planetarium lecture series than just this one record. And this is the only copy of this I've ever seen. So I don't know what happened. Maybe they, thought they would just maybe make one first, see how it went. Maybe it didn't go well, so they decided not to do the rest of the zodiac. Maybe they realized that it would be hard to stretch 50 minutes of content out of like Aries and some of the other zodiac constellations. Not really sure what happened, but this one came out in 1973, and that was the last, as far as I can tell, the last record released under the Planetarium Lecture Series and released by the Morrison Planetarium. So again, this was the Planetarium Lecture Series, Hubert J. Bernard. There's no sort of website or anything for this, but you all know how Google works, and you can certainly find find information on these records on the secondary market. So that's all I had. All of the records that I've shown, and not just today, but also throughout the series, as well as all the breakdowns and the links, can be found on the Dome Dialogues Google group. Again, the guys we talked about today, there was the Pluto Solar, the Quasar synth electronic music, Envy, Invariable Will box set, a lot of Japanese post-hardcore, and then finally the Planetarium Lecture Series, narrated by Hubert J. Bernard and accompanied by a very dramatic soundtrack of keyboards and kettle drums and all sorts of other quirky music from the late 60s. All right, that's what I had. Thanks so much for your time, and I will turn my eye to the chat and see if there's any questions there. Thanks, folks.
Thank you, Mike. And so, of course, what started as just an amazing episode of The Record Shop ends up as History's Mysteries with Mike Smale. So, of course, if you can help Mike track down any additional information about the Morrison Planetarium Lecture Series, please do contact him. msmale at adlerplanetarium.org. Excellent. See, committed things to memory. So now we are going to move on. We're moving south of the Mason-Dixon line, where I had to put on a different hat, but I can keep the pipe. We're going to Richmond, Virginia. It's Justin Bartle, totally bored, with special guest. Justin, take it away.
Yes, thank you, Michael. And just so you know, so that she can hear and talk, the mic gain is up, the speakers are up too, so we're trying to cause feedback, but hopefully it'll work out. Welcome back to another edition of Totally Bored. I am joined by my pandemic housemate, my arch nemesis, and Richmond Theater Critics Circle nominee for Best Actress in a Musical for 2020, Gray Garrett.
Also his girlfriend.
Yeah, that's implied. Everything else.
Oh, okay.
But I've got a couple of games for you this week. Well, first, I guess, Gray, did you realize what you would be getting into when you agreed to play a game 4.5 months ago?
I agreed to play one game. I had no idea.
It's been fun though, right?
Yeah, it's been so much. It's been so much fun. It's been challenging to be like, what do you want to do? Like, it's a lot to learn a new game.
Yeah, or a dozen new games.
A dozen new games.
As we will see
Yeah.
at the end. Now, just in case you don't have such a willing gaming partner, I did also break out. I realized I had a little solitaire game around. It is Deep Space D6. So that one, it's a solitaire game. So one person, you get a handful of dice, you roll those, and you try and protect your spaceship from alien attackers. I beat it the very first time I played it. I thought, it's too easy. It's not any fun. But then I subsequently lost the next 3 times. So even solo games, not always a winner. But that's okay. Today, we've also got a brand new release for you. A game just released on, was it Monday you went out and found it? It is a release from the Buffalo Games and Puzzles. It's called Apollo, the game inspired by the NASA moon missions, as you may be able to read there. Now, this is it's a pretty complicated
It was very just not straightforward to learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of learning curve. The first time we played it, I was almost worried we would never play it.
Yeah, I was not happy with how vague I felt like. I was on, you'll learn there are 2 sides, you work together as a team. But I was not happy with how vague some of the restrictions on mission control were. And so I felt very halted at what I could or could not say to him, and trying to figure that out.
It really is inspired by the way the space mission worked in the 1960s and still work today. So here is kind of a broad overview of the setup. It's a cooperative game. So everybody's kind of in it together, just like a real space mission. But just like a real space mission, you've got your astronauts in space, in the spacecraft, They see some information, and then you've got mission control back here on Earth. So in this view, down at the bottom was my view as astronaut crew. We've got cards and a game board in the middle, and up at the top, there's a screen that hides the mission control board from the astronaut crew's view. A little bit more of a close-up here. The astronauts board down there at the bottom, game board in the middle. Then there are multiple stages you have to complete as you go through the game. Kind of like Deep Space D6, this is primarily a dice manipulation game. So the astronauts get a handful of dice, they roll them, and then various things happen based on what they get. So this is a close-up of the game board itself. Overall, it's a beautiful game. All the art done by Chop Shop Studio, which you see on the video, actually just over Gray's head. A couple of their prints are also on the walls. I've got a whole set of those. My only complaint, though, I guess, well, I don't know. We're all professionals here. So on this picture, see if you can identify my only complaint with the game. It's on the game board there. A little bit of orbital mechanics. There. So,
Those are pretty harsh takeoffs and landings.
The wrong way. But this is not so bad. It's not so bad. So you work your way around the Earth there. If we're a polar view of the North Pole, perfect. And you have to complete those various stage cards. I think I made a nice big mouse cursor. So hopefully, as you go through the game, you're trying to fill up the various requirements on the stage game. The astronauts roll the dice at the beginning of each round. They place them on this board, which tracks those going to be damaged on your spacecraft. There are 5 different systems on the spacecraft, and as you line up your dice here, you end up seeing how much damage you're going to take. That's not such a good roll. You're taking a lot of damage off the top of the board there, but I've got these number 6s here. I could throw those up here and mitigate some of that damage. Then there's a whole action phase involved where I take those dice, put them on my board, try and complete experiments, try and repair systems, and ultimately complete the flight phases. Now, this is the view behind the mission control screen. The mission control has a completely different view of the situation. There is this special board that has sliders on it to keep track of the health of all the different spacecraft. They've got to keep track of the astronauts' progress on the experiment. That's really just collecting a certain number of dice of a certain color number. They are limited in how they can communicate. Little tokens up there. Yeah, the difficulty with mission control communicating is that they can give out bits of information, but they have to spend one of those little comm tokens each time they say something to the crew. So if you want to tell the crew that your life support system is running low on power, you've got to spend one of those comm tokens. And there's a limited number available. Now, the astronaut crew can help out by comms tokens. So again, truly collaborative for that game. A little bit wider view, fun. You get little flags you put up top of the board, let the crew know that there's something amiss. But again, once you have those ready, exactly what's going on. One element of the game that I guess we did well enough to never have to really encounter the actual crisis level danger with any of the systems. So there's 8 power levels for all of your spacecraft systems. And so if the astronauts roll the dice each round, you inflict enough damage that something gets down to 0, that system is in crisis. Mission control has to flip over one of these crisis cards. We never actually saw them in gameplay. So I don't know.
I'm an excellent communicator.
She is. But one thing that is possible is that mission control would have to complete one of these crisis puzzles. Thing on the left there, like a little circuit board, and they roll their own pair of dice to try and collect little pieces. They have to connect the yellow squares together. So avoiding all the red obstacles, 2 yellow squares. And again, there's more cooperation in play here. Some of these, if you look real carefully at your screen, you actually need to match 3 numbers to get those pieces. The astronauts give an extra die to mission control so they can actually complete that puzzle. I hope we never encounter. Pretty serious. So far, so good. Our second time through, we did complete a Gemini mission. So that involves completing all 5 flight stages and completing 2 experiments along the way without any of the other being triggered mission. So next up for us would be an Apollo mission someday. It's a little more complicated, much bigger board. You have to complete 8 flight stages, 3 experiments along the way. It's going to make the game longer, more potential for disaster. Maybe a couple more Gemini.
Yeah.
So that's Apollo. Again, it's a brand new release. It is available at Target, so easy to find, probably. It was, $30? So yeah, not too over the top in that sense. A beautiful game. Needs at least 2 players, 2 to 5 players, I believe it is. You can actually have 4 astronauts, more than any Apollo mission, but makes a bigger team, hopefully to win. So since this is our last totally board for a little while, here is the full collection. At least, so I didn't get Deep Space 6, but everything that we played together. I think that's everything that's talked about. So we've got the game Planetarium for Planetarians. That was perfect. Apollo you see up there at the top. It's beautiful. Well, Search for Planet X, 7 Wonders, Half Truth, not really planetarium, but there were a couple of space. The Extronaut 2.0 on the way. Constellations, Tesla. So great. Which one of these games was your favorite to play?
It's between Planetarium and the Search for Planet X.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think Planetarium is your target audience at least. You know who you're talking to. And Smale, Planet 9. Yeah. All right. So, which one did you feel like you enjoyed winning?
Oh, Planetarium. I beat
you. You did really beat me a lot. That one. Yeah. And which one should we play next?
Planet X.
Planet X.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we're gonna go search for Planet X. Unless we have anything else. Let me check. Record shop. Capsule comment. Oh, no target. Sorry, Anna. I mean, for a small fee, I'm sure we could. Oh. Let's see. Western launch trajectory. Well, why the Western launch trajectory? I don't know why they did that in the art, Gary. Maybe they were just copying some of the NASA graphics. I think do have it going that way, but fine for a North Polar view. But artistic license, I suppose. Let's see. Was the Apollo game actually fun for 2 players? Well,
yeah. So when we did get the hang of it, at first, I was a little like, it didn't seem straightforward to me. Just understanding the way they were laying out the rules seemed difficult to kind of comprehend. But there was a video on YouTube that we were able to watch that helped make a lot of things clearer for me. And we sat down and when we played it, the kind of fun thing about it is that you do have to work together as a team and pick out what the most important things to communicate back and forth are. And then also find interesting ways to let your partner know that you need to communicate something to them. So those things were fun. And we didn't get to the crisis levels, but I felt like it was nice that we worked together so well. And I think that it will become more fun, like most anything, when you have a better
yeah, and as a 1 astronaut crew, when we finally won, I had to talk to myself a lot. Like, well, I mean, I could do this, or I could, unless somebody tells me that this needs to happen. If you actually had multiple astronauts, that'd be more natural, where you're talking amongst yourselves. And although astronauts can't see what's on the mission control board, mission control can hear everything the astronauts are saying. So if the astronaut's talking about, well, should we devote these resources to this project? Then mission control could chime in and say, this is a bit of information that might inform your decision. So it was maybe a little awkward with just 2 players. We had to do a lot of talking to ourselves and try and tease out the right information that way.
Yeah. Also, another thing to mention for all of the roles and all of the there's a time limit. So you have to complete all your actions within 4 minutes. So everything that happens in the role, once you start the timer, has 4 minutes to be finished. And there were times that the timer would go off and be like, well, like, yes, there was the end of that.
Yeah, we were too busy, or mostly because again, I'm the astronaut crew, so I do most of the talking, and I was kind of talking to myself a lot. Like, oh, talked for 3 minutes. We had 1 minute to resolve everything, and I was going to do 2 more things, but we're out of time. So I guess talking to yourself really quickly, so Mission Control can chime in really quickly. Let's see. I think that covers our questions. So yeah, now I guess we'll go search for Planet X, and yeah, maybe there'll be another one someday. Maybe we'll have even more games to review then.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Justin. Thank you, Gray. Just making all of this just so much fun for us this afternoon. Mary, are you still good to go? Okay. Oh, so it's you know, we started all of this on a whim, and we're gonna end our recurring segments today with the Pandemic Primo podcast party for your planetarian. And because I promised that I would give her air horns for the last 8 weeks, ladies and gentlemen, here she is, Mary Holt.
Hey! Hello, everybody, and welcome to our final episode of PPP PFP, episode 12, which is just bananas. I feel like every single week or every single time we've done this, I'm like, how has it been so long? And now we're already at episode 12, several months in. And for this one, this episode is brought to you by the best podcasts of all time, or at least trying to pick ones that are the best podcasts of all time. And of course, as always, Squarespace. Now, when I was getting ready to do this last episode, I was like, I must narrow it down to the best ones. And then I looked at all the podcasts. These are all the podcasts that I have in my podcast app right now, available to listen to. So just to give you an idea of how difficult it is to narrow down, there are a lot out there. So I did pick my handful of what I find to be the best podcasts of all time, but I also picked a few other categories to share with you that you can peruse as well. And by the way, I added to the document that we have in the shared drive for the e-conferences just a list of all the podcasts that I've referenced on all the PPP PFPs, as well as the slides too. So you can look at that. But what I narrowed down to be the greatest podcasts of all time are these 6 right here. Now, a few of these, so This American Life, Death, Sex, and Money, and Reply All especially, the reason I find them to be just amazing, and I always want to listen to every single episode. I have never missed an episode of any of these. Anytime there's a new one, I always listen to it. And it's because of this combination of it, just they're really well made. They're very like genuine and heartfelt. Like you feel like you get to know the people that are telling you the stories and the hosts that are behind them. And they don't rely only on themselves too. The hosts, especially for This American Life and Reply All, have brought on many other wonderful guest hosts and talked to all sorts of different people about a variety of topics, which makes them amazing. And a newer one that I've really gotten into is Unladylike, which is similar in the sense that they cover a lot of different topics and have interesting people coming on. And then Serial and Song Exploder are in a different realm, but also I feel like amazing, excellent podcasts that there's not really much that's like them out there, where Song Exploder dives into why artists make what they do, how they make their songs, and it's just really, really interesting and very unique. And Serial was kind of the Kickstarter to make in-depth storytelling and journalism a big thing in podcasts in general. And also, by the way, they have a new season coming out pretty soon, so I thought it would be good to point out Serial. So check that out. They are part of the New York Times now, I think, so they've got a different umbrella that they're under. But a few other just quick categories I decided to throw together to make sure I was highlighting some of the other wonderful podcasts that are out there, some of which I've referred to before, but just as a reminder, a few excellent choices for human, lovely stories that are about a wide variety of topics: The Moth, Story Collider, and StoryCorps. Good podcast to go to if you're looking to learn something, and you'll feel smarter and dumber after each episode with many of these. So these are about science and society and politics and all sorts of wonderful things. So check those out. Hidden Brain, Code Switch, Hardcore History, Shortwave, Science Versus, Ologies, and More Perfect. And if you want some news, one that I haven't mentioned at all yet because it is very regional is the California Report. But I do highly recommend looking up to see if there is a good like short news podcast for your local area. I love the California Report. It's just 10 minutes long, 5 days a week, and it's about local news, not just, you know, in the Bay Area, but across California in general. And these are some other good ones for news as well. And some good podcasts that I do highly recommend, but they are done. They don't do these new ones anymore, but I would definitely recommend going back into the archives and looking up these podcasts. I think I've mentioned most of these before. And I wanted to point out just a few of these that almost maybe would have gotten into the greatest of all time if it weren't for the fact that I don't feel like I'm objective with how I like these. Because Good Christian Fun is, you'll love it like I do if you are a 90s kid that grew up in an evangelical Christian household. So, you know, that's a pretty niche thing. So if you're in that realm, you'll probably very much enjoy it. Similar, Gilmore Guys is about Gilmore Girls. Terrible Things for Asking is very like sad a lot of the time, but also funny. And like, I feel like you need some trauma in your past life to appreciate it. I've been getting way more into various podcasts from the McElroy family. They are all over the place. I'm pretty sure they're going to take over the podcast world one of these days. So all 5 of these are from the same brothers here and their family members. And I haven't actually listened to the Besties at all yet, but I recently started listening to Wonderful. Sawbones is one of my all-time favorite new podcasts. It is fantastic. And I definitely recommend any of those. And just a few smattering ones that are wonderful that I have mentioned before, but I wanted to make sure I pointed out again. Though I don't think I've ever talked about 10 Things That Scare Me. It's an interesting one. They're very short, like 5 minutes long, and they have a particular guest come on and they just answer, they just say that. They just list 10 things that scare them and they talk about it a little bit. It's really interesting. And lastly, I leave you with our strangers that are just friends that we have not yet met. These are podcasts that I have not yet listened to, but are in my queue to listen to. And I very much look forward to getting to know these pals and having them be my new friends that are in my earbuds every day. And I've heard that they are very good and I recommend looking them up as well. But with that, that is our last episode of PPP PFP. Thank you all once again for listening to me talk about one of my favorite things, podcasts. And yeah, thank you all. There we go.
Yeah, I had to get it. Hey, Ben. With that, we've concluded our recurring segments. Okay, fine. I will open the fudgicle for you. So we've concluded our recurring segments for the week, for the season, really. And we've come down to what might be the single most wholesome part of these e-conferences, but one that I hope we can continue to keep throughout this, the coming weeks and months and years. And that's the best parts of the week. So it is our way, with a huge wizard hat tip to Renee Kerrigan for this idea very, very early on, to just end our e-conferences on Friday on the highest of notes. And so if you've got something that you are excited and happy about from this week or this month or this year or upcoming, share it, make everybody else feel good, and send us into the weekend and IPS week feeling as good as possible. So in this case, if you just want to go on ahead and unmute, go on ahead and share with us.
All right, I just want to share a big thank you for everybody that attended the WAC conference. It was great, and I survived. That was my big
And then I want to make sure that Paige gets to go because her hand is up. So Paige, you go, and then we'll let you all duke it out and figure out who's going to
Well, besides these wonderful Dome dialogues that have been like a planetarium training course, I got some new glasses this week, and I broke my glasses back in April and beginning of lockdown virus time, and I was scared to go anywhere, so I tried to fix them with super glue, which was not good. So I get up at 6 a.m. for these conferences and try to stick my contacts in my tired eyes, and that didn't work either. So I'm pretty excited about my new glasses.
Mark Webb.
The best part of my week, I have to say, I really enjoyed the WAC conference, and thank you, Michelle, for that. It was a really great e-conference, and really looking forward to IPS. Tune into IPS on Monday afternoon around 4, 5, 6 o'clock, the last hour of the day. Godo has some surprising news for you. That's about it. I don't know that we should probably discuss offline, Michael, about VHS for IPS. I'm a little swamped right now, so we'll see.
Yeah, that sounds good. Rachel, go ahead.
Well, I was hired onto, can you guys hear me? Okay, yeah. I was hired onto the planetarium January 2nd. And so I kind of basically had just gotten through the training period when everything shut down. But honestly, the best part of my year has been starting this new job and also, you know, meeting this wonderful community that I found with Dome Dialogues and fellow planetarians.
Awesome. All right, Anna Green.
So like many of you, probably the best part of the year has been these conferences, and honestly just the fact that we have the technology to video call people in general. Yeah. It's been, I'm not going to say I feel very isolated and alone here, because that's not entirely true. Like I have wonderful colleagues and I have a few good friends here, but the majority of my friends are in the planetarium community, or, you know, my entire family's back in the States. And so thanks to having things like this, I still get to see your wonderful faces and feel like I'm still part of a community, even when I'm across an ocean from most of you, not all of you, but most of you. And also, I do have to admit, I've also been enjoying the lack of tourists here so that I can play tourist without other tourists in my way.
All right, Mary Holt and then Mike Smale.
I just wanted to throw in my hat as well real quick because I have to run in just a second, but I've just super appreciated these e-conferences and just being able to have a thing regularly on the schedule that I can check in with folks, and it's made things seem a little less weird and made me feel a lot more connected. And I feel like I got to know people a lot more than I would have if we didn't have this. So that's been one of the few like very bright highlights in this whole pandemic experience so far.
Nice. And then yesterday we got a new telescope. It's nothing fancy, just an 8-inch Dob, but I'm looking forward to piecing that together and starting to test that out. Not just here in Chicago, but we're heading off into the middle of the woods in a couple weeks to take some vacation. So it'll be fun to haul that along and see what we see.
Colin, go ahead.
Yeah, kind of second, echoing what everyone else said, just being able to kind of connect with everyone to this. So many people's names that I know, but I've never actually met or seen. So it's been really good. But I think the highlights this year have been working with the Royal Conservatoire for music for my new shows. I'll pop some of the links to the people that I've been working with if you wish to use them for any of your shows. And I got to see the comet the other day. I finally got a clear sky here. So I've seen it twice. Once a couple of weeks ago and just the other night. My neighbors did think it was a bit strange because it was just above their house, but it is still visible. sadly, it's just clouded over, so I'm probably going to get an early night.
All right, Renee, go ahead.
I have like a two-part answer. So best part of my week, I think I'm going to give a planetarium public shout out to Shannon and Tiffany, who are my co-member, well, amongst others, on the leadership team of Beg Astronomy, but they're also just like super good friends, and I can count on them for support. We're all like moms who are professionals in the planetarium community as well, and you know, some days are harder than others, and it's really great to have friends who know what you're going through. So I think they're not even on here, but now you guys know how awesome they are too. Not that you didn't anymore. But best part of like COVID, because I do think we should try to find the good parts of sucky things. And so for me, I hope if everything like comes out of this, if my museum is fine, if my coworkers are fine, I think like the best thing that I'll look back on it is the only people I've been seeing outside of work now since I'm back to work is my family. So I have a 3-year-old, and she's like going crazy being in the house all the time. So our outings are like grandparents' house. And so she'll wake up and she'll say, where are we going this day? And if we can, we go to Grandma Barb's, or we go to Grandpa Drome's, or we go to Grandma Mary's. And so I'm hopeful that when we, 5 years from now, when I look back on this time, won't be all about the hardships that we are all facing right now, but maybe instead it will be all the time we spent seeing our family more than we normally do.
Anyone else want to? Marco, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I had to continue with my cell phone because the internet just went off here. But yeah, I wanted to add that this has made these things bearable for us, because this is the way I feel that all these months have been something to gain. We have lost some things here about pandemic, but you have made us win something, and something very valuable. So I have been very comfortable with all of you, and very grateful for all the things you're sharing. Whatever, it's very interesting all the time. Even Mike's mails, record shops. I just happened to me when I was at high school. I spent 2 weeks saving to buy me a 45 record, and I found it yesterday in my ceiling because I had stored it there, and here it is. This is a Journey record. So it is very hot up there, so I don't recommend to store the vinyl records there. So thank you all, really, it has been amazing.
Awesome. Anyone else? Susan.
I was emailing with Michelle a little earlier, and she was talking about how she and Guilherme from Brazil were doing some online stuff now. And now that we've seen all of your faces over these conferences, wow, it's, you know that there are people out there doing similar things and trying to do new things. And we can call on each other and do it together because we know each other now. It's very intimate community through these e-conferences. Thank you.
Awesome. Anyone? Noreen, go ahead.
I also think these have been great opportunities to come together. A lot of people here I didn't know, and now I feel like I do know you. I've learned a lot. I actually have 2 notepads full of notes from all these the hospitality suites and all the Dome dialogues. And Mike, when you did the session on the technology you need for home studio, I ordered a microphone, and guess what just arrived recently? The microphone. That's how long everything's been back ordered. So I'm gonna give that a try out and see about this. Try out the Stellarium, and I just want to thank you and Mark for hosting these sessions. They've been tremendous, really good.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone else before we wrap up today? Cool. Well, it's been an awesome time. This, and of course, the last e-conference is the one we go over by 20 minutes. So thanks, everybody. And so, it's been a fun journey. I'm dressed up like a wizard because why the hell not? And the plan right now is we're going to take August and September off, probably October too, and probably come back post GLIPA. Because we know there's a lot of stuff that's coming up in the fall, and there may or may not be more reopenings, and we just kind of want to have that space there for any sort of like consistent e-conference schedule. I've also got a couple of big life changes over the next 2 months that I've got to focus on. So the e-conferences are a good thing to kind of put by the wayside. But since I'm Gandalf today, I want to leave you all with the Gandalf quote. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. And that's what we've done very, very well over these last few months. It's how we react and how we persevere. And we have done an incredible job of that, each and every one of you. And none of this would have been possible if not for everybody that's in this room and who's been at these conferences and who's kept this community thriving and alive now in the midst of some really, really difficult times. So I tip my wizard hat to all of you. And with that, eConference 24 comes to a close. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next week at IPS.
Bye.
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 Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Michael.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Michael.